Emily had no idea that the tired man in rags who entered the cafe that cold Monday morning would change her life forever. To everyone else, he looked like just another drifter someone society had forgotten, someone who didn't belong. But Emily didn't see it that way. Her instincts, shaped by years of silent struggles and quiet disappointments, pushed her to offer kindness when others turned away. She didn't know his name, his story, or his purpose. All she saw was a human being sitting alone, cold and tired, probably hungry. And that was enough. She brought him a cup of hot coffee and a small plate of toast, paid from her own tips. No one told her to, no camera was recording her. There was no audience to clap or praise her. She simply acted, driven by empathy that came from deep within. That kind of kindness, the kind given without any reward or recognition in sight, is rare. It's the type of kindness that doesn't calculate or keep score. Emily didn't think for a second that this man could help her in any way. She wasn't hoping for a tip or a compliment. She just wanted him to feel seen, even if just for a few minutes. She could have walked past him like the others did. She could have said, "Sorry, sir, we don't serve people who can't pay." Or subtly ignored him, pretending he wasn't there. It would have been easier, quicker, cleaner, but instead, she made a different choice. She smiled. She served. And in doing so, she passed a test she didn't even know she was taking. That man, Benjamin Wright, was not a beggar. He was a millionaire. A man who had once been poor, who had grown rich, and who had slowly begun to doubt whether true kindness still existed in the world. He had been treated differently ever since wealth found him doors open faster. People smiled wider, compliments came easier, but he couldn't shake the feeling that all of it was hollow. So he decided to go back, not in time but in disguise. He dressed in worn clothes, took the bus, and walked into a random cafe in a random town, looking for something money couldn't buy. Sincerity, what he found in Emily was more than kindness. He found grace. She wasn't wealthy. In fact, she was barely scraping by. She worked long hours, studied during breaks, and sent money to support her younger sister. Her own dreams were held together by hope and determination, with very little security underneath. But despite all of that, she gave. She didn't give much in the material sense, just coffee and toast, but what she gave emotionally was far greater: dignity, respect, warmth. That's what struck Benjamin the most. That she, of all people, someone with very little to spare, still chose to give from the heart. What Emily didn't realize was that her small act of kindness was about to ripple into something extraordinary. Because when you treat someone kindly without knowing who they are or what they can offer you, that kindness carries a purity that changes everything. Benjamin returned each day that week, watching, observing, learning, and every time Emily treated him the same, with gentle care and without judgment. She never asked why he kept coming back or hinted that he should leave. She simply offered what she could, over and over again, when the truth finally came out when Benjamin returned. In a crisp suit, shaved and polished, revealing his true identity, Emily was stunned. The man she fed was a millionaire. But even more shocking was what he offered her: a full scholarship to nursing school, a job opportunity, and a chance to change her own life. Not because she asked for it, not because she expected it, but because she had proven something something money cannot measure. In the end, Emily's story is not about luck. It's not about being in the right place at the right time. It's about character. She chose to be kind when there was no reason to. She gave without asking. She served without judging. And that selfless act, given in a moment of quiet, unseen grace, echoed into something far greater than she could have imagined. That's the beauty of real kindness. It doesn't need to be noticed to matter. It doesn't need an audience to be meaningful. It's powerful precisely because it's given freely. And sometimes when you least expect it, that small act of kindness can come back to you in ways that reshape your entire future. In a world where everyone seems to be chasing what they can get, Emily reminded us all of what truly matters. What you're willing to give, even when you have little. And that's what made her story unforgettable. Emily never thought her life would change because of something as small as a cup of coffee. To her, it was just another ordinary morning. Another long shift behind the counter of a small cafe tucked into a quiet corner of the city. The air outside was cold and sharp, the kind of winter morning that made people rush from door to door without making eye contact, and the kind of day where kindness often disappeared beneath layers of scarves, schedules, and silence. But inside the cafe, the warmth didn't come from the heaters. It came from Emily, asterisk. She moved from table to table with practiced ease, offering tired smiles to regular customers and friendly greetings to strangers. She wasn't rich. In fact, she lived paycheck to paycheck, often skipping meals so her little sister wouldn't have to. But you wouldn't know it from the way she treated people. She had a way of making others feel seen, even if just for a moment. Her kindness wasn't loud or showy, it was quiet, consistent and real. Asterisk. That morning, a man walked in who didn't quite fit the usual crowd. He wore layers of clothes that didn't match, his boots were cracked and worn, and his beard covered much of his face. His eyes were tired but alert. Most people barely noticed him, or pretended not to. A couple sitting near the window glanced at him, then looked away quickly. One man frowned and muttered under his breath about how the place was going downhill. But Emily saw something else. Asterisk. She saw the way his hands trembled slightly as he held the door. She saw how he didn't go straight to a table, but hovered near the back wall, unsure if he'd even be allowed to sit. And in that moment, without hesitation, she approached him with a gentle voice and a warm smile. Asterisk. "Good morning," she said. "Would you like to sit? I'll bring you some coffee to warm up." Asterisk. The man looked at her as if trying to decide whether she was being genuine. He nodded silently as she guided him to a corner booth far from the judgmental eyes of others. True to her word, she brought him coffee and a small plate of toast. She didn't ask if he could pay. She didn't ask anything at all. She simply offered what she could. Asterisk. What Emily didn't know, what she couldn't possibly have imagined, was that the man sitting across from her wasn't who he appeared to be. He wasn't homeless. He wasn't hungry in the way people thought. His name was Benjamin Wright, a millionaire who had once lived on the streets himself, long before he built a wellness empire that made him one of the wealthiest men in the country. Asterisk. Benjamin hadn't dressed that way for attention. He wasn't running a social experiment for clicks or filming a viral video. He had grown disillusioned with the world he lived in. Surrounded by people who treated him differently because of his money, he had begun to wonder if kindness still existed when there was nothing to gain. So he set out without his expensive suits, without his entourage, without his name. He walked into random places in search of something rare and valuable. Sincerity, asterisk, and there, in that modest cafe, he found it. Asterisk. Emily returned to his table several times that morning, not to hurry him out, but to check if he needed anything else. She offered a slice of pie someone else hadn't finished, wrapped in a napkin like a gift. She even gave him a $10 gift card from her own wallet, explaining that it had been a leftover from a customer who didn't need it. He tried to protest, but she smiled and said softly, "Everyone needs a little help sometimes." Asterisk. Each day, Benjamin returned, always in disguise, always quiet. And each day, Emily welcomed him with the same kindness. She never asked about his past. She never pried or made assumptions. She simply saw him, not his clothes, not his status, not the story others might have written for him. Just him. Asterisk. To most people, a cup of coffee and a kind word would seem like nothing, just part of a routine. But Benjamin knew better. He remembered what it was like to go days without anyone meeting your eyes. He knew the weight of silence, the sting of being ignored. And here was a young woman with barely enough of her own, giving anyway, not because it looked good, not because someone told her to, but because it was who she was. Asterisk. Emily's small acts of compassion set in motion something neither of them could have predicted. For Benjamin, it was a reminder of why he'd started his company in the first place, to help people feel seen and supported. He had drifted from that purpose, lost in boardrooms and bank accounts, but Emily's warmth pulled him back. She reminded him that even the smallest gestures could carry tremendous power, Asterisk by the end of the week, Benjamin knew what he needed to do. He returned one last time, but not as the man in rags. He came in clean-shaven, wearing a tailored coat, no longer hiding who he was. Emily didn't recognize him at first. It wasn't until he walked to her table and said her name that she blinked, trying to understand what was happening. Asterisk, I owe you something, he said, placing a folder in front of her. Asterisk inside was a full scholarship to nursing school, her dream for years, but always out of reach. There was also a letter of employment, an offer to work at his company's new wellness clinic once she graduated. Asterisk, she didn't know what to say. Her hands trembled, her eyes filled with tears. Asterisk, but why? She whispered. Asterisk, Benjamin looked at her with quiet gratitude. Because you gave to me when you thought I had nothing to give back. You changed my life with nothing more than kindness, and now I'd like to return that gift. Asterisk, Emily never asked for recognition. She never expected reward. But because she acted with empathy in a moment when others chose judgment, her world shifted. That simple cup of coffee became a turning point, not just for her, but for Benjamin too. It renewed his purpose. It reconnected him to the humanity he feared he had lost. Asterisk, the truth is, the smallest acts of compassion often become the biggest moments of transformation. We think we need grand gestures to make a difference, but most of the time, it's the unnoticed choices, the decision to be kind, the willingness to listen, the gesture of sharing that ripple out in ways we'll never fully understand. Asterisk, Emily didn't change the world with her actions, but she changed someone's world, and that's what matters. You never know how far your kindness will travel. You never know who you're lifting when you offer them a little grace. And you never know until much later that those small, quiet moments may be the very ones that define your life. Asterisk, Emily's story isn't one of luck. It's one of heart. It's a reminder that anyone, no matter their circumstances, has the power to give, and that sometimes what we give comes back to us in the most unexpected and beautiful ways. Asterisk, if this story touched your heart. Asterisk, if even for a moment you felt that kindness is still alive in this world, then please like this video, share it with someone who might need a little hope today. Asterisk, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Every day, Grace Stories. Your small action could spark hope in someone else's heart. Let's spread this light of compassion and humanity together. Asterisk will keep bringing you more real, emotional, and inspiring stories like this.